Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 4, Episode 56. Hello and welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast with me, Mark Taylor. Today I'm joined by Claire Somerville, and she's the head of Children and Young People's Dance at One Dance UK. And I came across this organisation. I was lucky enough to be invited to a meeting with the Arts Council as part of my work with the National Association for Primary Education. And we were talking about organisations that have an impact and the way that our sort of education within the arts is going to be changing over the coming years, and it was great to meet so many sort of like-minded organisations and people with great insights about how the arts are going to be different within education and how we can really sort of see and have some impact on that. So Claire, thank you very much for chatting with me today.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Can we start a little bit about your history in terms of dance and how you got involved then with One Dance UK?
Yeah, so my background is from a predominantly dance perspective. I trained at De Montfort University in performing arts and then went on to do a postgraduate certificate in contemporary dance at Trinity Laban. And then from there, over the sort of subsequent 15 years or so, I've been working mainly in dance, but also across other art forms, developing different projects and programmes, largely around children and young people's work, but also across different communities as well. And then in the last sort of 10 years, I've focused very much on dance for and with children and young people. And I was programme manager for 8 of those years at Youth Dance England. And then for the last 2 years or so, I've been here at One Dance UK as the head of Children and Young People's Dance.
Wow, that's quite that's quite an interesting career to have, and within that, what's your sort of day-to-day role look like as part of One Dance UK?
Well, it's quite varied from one day to the next. So in the last week or so, one day might have been, yesterday, for example, I was in a round table. We were talking all about cultural education and how important it is across all the different art forms. And I was obviously there to talk about dance specifically. And then another day may be working with our young dance ambassadors and helping to train them to be sort of more confident and proactive young people who can be advocates and champions for dance, both within and outside of school. And then I also work with the team here to develop new learning programmes, courses, resources and guidance for teachers and practitioners who deliver dance, again, both inside and outside of school. Because One Dance UK has quite a large remit. We're the subject association for dance in school. We're one of around 33 subject associations, but we're the one for dance. But we're also the national sector support organisation for dance across the whole of the dance industry. So it's good that you mentioned having been speaking to colleagues at Arts Council England, because they're our main funder, and we will be part of their national portfolio from the 1st of April 2018 as the only sector support organisation for dance. So myself and my colleagues have a really sort of broad remit around supporting the workforce, advocating for dance generally, and then also creating opportunities where there are gaps in provision.
And along those lines, how do you see dance within schools, and specifically sort of primary and key stage 3? You know, how do you feel dance is utilised during that sort of age group?
Well, it's interesting because from Key Stage 1 to 3, dance is a compulsory part of the PE curriculum. So it's largely delivered by, obviously, classroom teachers, teaching support assistants, and also external providers who come into school to teach dance as part of a sort of wide and varied PE curriculum. So it's quite different at that level as opposed to in secondary education, where hopefully it's delivered by dance specialists and trained dance teachers. So one of the key things we find is that primary schools often need some extra help and guidance around the real specialist area of teaching dance and the specialist skills that are required and how to bring authentic creativity into what is essentially a physical education environment, so that both the physical activity part of the dance and the creative part of the dance can combine to be really interesting and appropriate for Key Stage 1 to 3.
And specifically, how do you help and support that? Do you have a sort of a selection of resources which schools and teachers can tap into, or is it more one-on-one or CPD, or is it a whole range of those types of things?
Yeah, it's a bit of a range, and we're actually developing some new programs going forward. Because we're a national organisation and there are 20,000 primary schools across England, it's obviously we couldn't possibly do it one-to-one, but what we do is develop CPD programs that schools or group clusters of schools or local authorities or academy chains can buy in from us, so that we can go in and work with perhaps between 15 and 25 teachers at a time to help then develop some core skills and knowledge around delivering dance in Key Stage 1 and 2 particularly. We're a membership organisation, so individual teachers and schools can join One Dance UK, and then they get free access to over 150 lesson plans, units of work that is growing all the time. They're available online to download. And then what we're looking to do going forward is to develop more online learning programs and online resources that are more visual and video based. Not because we want teachers in the classroom to be using video to teach dance directly to the children, but using video footage and online resources to help inspire them and develop their skills, so then they can go in and teach a really interesting dance lesson with their pupils. We also have an annual conference, and we just recently had our first dance teaching and participation conference, which was really, really successful. And we had one particular session that was all around activating dance in primary schools. We had some really great contributions from Kari Brooks from Broadcliff Primary School in Devon, Laura Kendall, who works across a range of schools in Manchester, and Lucy Seymour and Beth Robbins, who are classroom teachers at Tannery Drift Fair School in Hertfordshire. And they all came along and presented how they helped to both champion the value of dance in their school or settings, and also how they overcome the challenges to make sure that dance is delivered really, really to a high standard and really interestingly for their pupils. And then that sort of informed some good debate and discussion in the room with everyone there as to how we can all kind of meet those challenges and work together to get more dance of a high quality to being delivered across primary schools.
I think that's really important, and one of the key takeaways that I think there is certainly something that sort of resonates with me from a musical standpoint as well, is that the visual aspect of actually seeing something which comes across to a teacher very differently, isn't it, than just a lesson plan and an actual sort of written document. And I think it's the combination of those two that are really supportive for teachers.
Yeah, that's what we find. We did some research earlier in the year asking teachers across all key stages how they access resources and learning materials, and we were quite surprised to find that far outstripping any other source was YouTube. So we thought, well, we need to have more content on YouTube that we know is of a high quality and that we can back up with both written materials and also face-to-face opportunities as well through one-day sets, for example, to make sure that there is quality work out there that teachers can use, and it's in the place that they're obviously going to find it. So we're trying now to take what we do to people and not expect them to come and find us.
Yes, absolutely, and I think it's having, as a national organisation, has an organisation that has a very big remit and a large arc and some fantastic people involved within it. Teachers that are then going to be coming to you and actually are coming across you, like you say, with through a YouTube channel or whatever. You just know that the information you're getting is one fantastic and supportive and creative and has basis in real understanding, rather than just someone that might have a lot of views but isn't necessarily going to give you what you need from an educational point of view, as well as an actual dance point of view.
So we're trying to make sure that what's available for teachers, that certainly what we produce is of a high standard and is very much linked to the curriculum and based on what teachers tell us they need. And we're also advising dance companies and artists about how they can ensure that their resources and guidance that they provide to schools is mostly linked to the curriculum and to the needs of schools. And again, that they're engaging with the schools that they work with to really tailor what they do, because one of the key sort of recommendations we get from school is don't just expect one size to fit all. We need you to work with us to ensure that what's being delivered is really appropriate to us and will meet our needs and objectives. And on that, going forwards, again, we're looking to develop 2 teacher advisory groups, one that's for primary school teachers and one for secondary school. And we're aware how busy everybody is, so it's not something we hope will take up too much of people's time. But we would like to ensure we're getting real first-hand guidance, expertise and ideas from teachers in both of those stages, who are currently actively teaching and can tell us about the issues that they're facing and how our support could really benefit them and what we might develop going forward, so it's really relevant and useful to them. So if any of your listeners are interested in being part of one of those teacher advisory groups, then I'd really love to hear from them, because this is something we're just looking to develop at the moment.
Oh, that's great. That sounds like it's a really exciting and interesting thing to be part of. So yeah, do get in touch, and all the things we talk about will be on the educationonfire.com website show notes, so you can just go there and search for One Dance UK, and all of that will pop up, and so we'll make sure you've got all the links for those sort of things and access to that information. One thing I'd like to ask you about is how much work you do with some of the large companies within the UK specifically. One of the things that came up in one of the meetings that I was in was talking about the barrier between a teacher planning their next section of work and wanting to do some kind of wow factor or get a large organisation in or part of their education department to come to their school or find something that's going on locally. But there's often a barrier between doing that and being able to get access to some of those things, and I know the education departments are really important for a lot of the national and large organisations in this country, but I know exactly what they mean, because through the podcast I've had the same thing, that I've approached some large organisations, and it's really hard to get a response back from them, which seems a little bit unlikely, bearing in mind that they have an education department specifically designed for that. But I just wonder, is there a problem with funding? Are there not enough people, or is it more, like you said, getting them to understand that they need to fit with what the education system wants, rather than just creating something which they think can be given to the education system?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there's lots of things there, actually. I think funding is an issue for the arts sector and for organisations, and often those learning and participation departments are just a tiny part of the big Goliath that is the rest of the organisation. And as someone who works in learning and participation myself, I talk to those colleagues and we all sort of say, we wish we had a higher profile within the organisations. Not so much myself here at One Dance UK, but certainly some of the other companies. So that's a factor. But I would say perhaps the schools need a little bit of help of finding exactly the right person they should be speaking to in the organisation. Sometimes that can be a challenge. It's not always easy from a company website to know who should be speaking to. From a dance point of view, we are very open to helping to signpost people. It's a large part of the work we do, because we can't possibly do everything ourselves. And if people are particularly interested in connecting with a specific dance venue or organisation and not sure who to speak to, they are very welcome to contact us, we can perhaps make an introduction or signpost them. The other body of organisations, and I don't know if this has been on your podcast before, but there are 10 bridge organisations across the country. Is this something you're aware of, Mark?
No, it's not. No, I'm interested to hear more about that.
Okay, so the bridge organisations are funded by Arts Council England, and their primary remit is to help build a bridge between schools and cultural organisations. So there's one in every region across England, and they are tasked with helping to do exactly what you're saying. Help schools connect with cultural organisations so that they can really bring in authentic, perhaps high profile, certainly high quality arts and cultural education to the school, and that the school can also help inform the work that's going on within the arts and cultural sector as well. So it's a two-way process.
Yeah.
Those bridge organisations are particularly tasked around helping schools to become an arts smart school.
Yeah.
And also how they might deliver arts award in their schools. So there are mechanisms there, and they are absolutely tasked to do that work. So again, if a school in any particular area is wondering who they should contact around a particular art form, including dance, they can contact the bridge organisation for their region, and they can find the list of bridge organisations on the Arts Council website. They're all listed with all the contact details.
That's fantastic, and so the Arts Council website is the place to go for that. So you could really find out all those things. That's really interesting, because as someone who's been involved in education and the arts for many years, I hadn't actually realised that was the case. So that's a really great thing to be able to get across for everyone listening. Just knowing those key, really great bits of information about just specific places you can go, or places that you can search in. As we know, the internet's a very large place, and when you're just sort of trying to work your own ideas through it takes a lot of time to do that. So that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that. Going forward, could you give us a little bit of information about, if you were a school without any extra funding, but you wanted to actually create a dance element within, sort of externally from just the role within the PE side of things, how would you advise maybe a school to go about that? Is that about partnering up with other organisations to maybe create a club or something like that, or is it a bit more about just having an idea that you want to run with?
Well, starting with an idea is a really good place to start, and perhaps how it's going to link to a particular topic in your school. For example, lots of schools approach us on that basis. For example, looking for a dance artist or practitioner who might come in and help them explore a particular topic. So there's that. That's quite a good starting point. I would say connecting with other primary schools in their local area. I'm sure most, if not many, of the primary schools already do that, but that will also enable them to learn from each other about what dance activity they've been doing, and if they've made particularly good connections with external providers who can come in and support the teachers to develop a project. The one good thing about dance at the moment in primary school is that, as your listeners will probably be aware, there is the PE and sport premium, and primary schools now get around £16,000 a year, which can be spent on developing their PE curriculum, including upskilling the teachers, and many of them are using that money to develop either more provision in school curriculum time or as an extracurricular club or activity, in dance particularly. So there is money there as well that they could use to develop a dance project that will lead to a performance that the parents and wider community and school governors and trustees can be invited to come and see. And we run a programme called You Dance, which is for people who are running a dance performance, which involves more than one school or group. They can register it with us for free, and we will send them some resources and guidance on how to develop a dance performance, and certificates to give to all the pupils that will perform in it. We also advertise that performance, either just to say that it's taking place, or if people want to sell tickets, they can advertise that as well. So it's all about really raising the profile of dance and dance performances that are going on inside and outside of school, and that's available to anyone who's running a dance performance involving children aged between 0 and 19. So it's quite broad.
That's fantastic. And what I like about that is it kind of takes me back a little bit to a conversation I had in one of my earlier podcasts with Danny Bow, who we were talking about leadership and the best way to maybe approach a school or your head or the governing body about a project that you're really excited about. And it sounds like what you've just explained there is exactly the same principle. It's that kind of, you come across something you'd like to do, something you'd like to achieve, you have an idea about how you can put it together, and with the resources that we've just been talking about, you can really go away and say, look, this is out there, this is something that we can do. And as you said, there is funding available that's coming in specifically through PE, and so there is a way of doing it. And actually, as a teacher listening, if you're really excited about this, if this really sort of gets your fire going, and the children will be really enthused about it, with all of those aspects in mind, the funding, the place to get the information, and an idea maybe of how to put it through a topic, I think a head teacher and governing body would be really enthused about actually trying to help you support that.
Yeah, I think so. We certainly get feedback along those lines, and to support that process, there are a couple of suggestions I can make as well. We have on our website it's called Dance Education, a guide for governors and trustees, and we also have another free to download guide on using the PE in Sport Premium to develop dance activity in your school. So it has some case studies as well of how schools have done that, both individually and as clusters of schools working together. So if you're just looking for a bit of inspiration, that's available on the website as well.
That's fantastic. So can you just give us some of those information, the website, and I know you've got some Facebook and Twitter things that people can actually directly go in and search out some of that information from?
Yes, so our website is onedancuk.org, and then if you click on the resources section and put into the search criteria PE and sport,
onedancuk.org is the place to go, and that gives you all those access to all those things, and some of those other resources like the Arts Council website and all that sort of thing. I'll look at all those things, and I'll put a link on the show notes to this particular podcast, and so if you go to educationonfire.com, all those things will be there as well. So hopefully that will give you some really great starting points, and also if you've already got some great dance going on, some places where you can expand and improve what you'd like to offer. So Claire, thank you very much for chatting to me. It's been really interesting, and I've learned an awful lot from our conversation, and hopefully our listeners will have done the same. And I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all the continued success with your videos, and as you start to expand all those great resources that I think are really going to be so helpful for teachers.
Thanks very much, Mark. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.